Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the RTÉ GAA podcast. Éamonn is with myself and Rory to look back on the penultimate round of the Football League. Let's fly through the results. So in case for anybody who didn't see it, Mayo beating Derry, which is a relegation for Derry, 219 to 117. Donegal 19 points, Tyrone 25 points yesterday. And then on Saturday, Kerry beating Armagh 221 to 17 points, and Dublin with a 219 to 213 win against Galway, which means after it all, you've got 3 teams on 8 points. Galway, Dublin and Donegal, Mayo on 7, Kerry on 6, Tyrone and Armagh on 5, and Derry on 1 point, and as we say, relegated. And maybe, Éamonn, this is the position we thought we might be in, where you've still got, 5 teams who can potentially make a league final. Whether they want to be in it or not, maybe another story, but Derry relegated, and we probably saw this one coming for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely, Jacqui. And look, I suppose what we did think before the start of the league was that it was going to be a dog-eat-dog league all over the place, but especially in Division 1. The teams would take points off each other. To be fair to Derry, they are only on 1 point, but a share of those games have been very tight and they've just come out the wrong side of them. So they've been unlucky in a way. But yeah, I made a point in my column this morning when I was looking at it yesterday evening that in Division 1, 7 points doesn't even guarantee you safety next weekend, which is kind of unprecedented, and it just underlines what's up for grabs. I saw Paddy Tally saying that their focus now has switched straight away to Championship, and that they'll probably run their squad next weekend in Armagh City. So you'd expect Armagh to win at home anyway, so that would push Armagh on to 7. So the onus then is on Kerry and Tyrone to make sure they get to at least 7, and in Kerry's situation, try and get to 8 points. And Mayo are even still in the mix. So it's unbelievable. Mayo could potentially get dragged into the relegation scrap, and at the same time could be in the league final next Sunday. So it's great. There's nothing predictable about it, and it'll be very interesting for all of us next weekend.
Yeah, and I think, Rory, that's the interesting thing, because previously we would have said 6 points is the golden number. We always would have said, yeah, get to 6, then you're grand, you can start focusing. Suddenly now you've got somebody like Jack O'Connor even sitting on 7 points. You think he's sitting pretty, but he could easily be relegated or be in a league final, which is a really strange position for a manager to be in.
Not to get too parochial, but I think Cork were considered very unlucky back in, Jenny, it must be
2016, Rory, yeah.
2016, when they went down with 6 points and everyone was saying that was a little bit harsh, and now you're in a situation where someone could go down with 7. It gives you, I think Éamonn's spot on, it gives you an indication really of how tight it is in the division. And I suppose it also probably gives a good portent of things to come, because what it means is for an awful long time, even through the dark days of the old Gaelic football, you kind of started the year with a very simple question: can anyone beat the Dubs? Now, I think it's a much more open competition right across the board. Now, Dublin could still end up winning this competition when we get to the Championship later on, and they'll fancy themselves to make a league final as well. But I think, look, it's a very healthy thing for the sport that there seems to be a much more democratic spread and many more teams that are capable of beating each other. And I think that's a healthy thing, and it should be welcomed.
Yeah, I agree. I think the new question now, Éamonn, is who can beat the rules? And maybe that's what the key is, because I think even if you look at Dublin Galway the other night, we probably felt maybe this was going to be the game of the weekend. It certainly was. And, new rules on show, everybody trying to play football, everybody trying to find a creative way of being the best at adapting to it. And I think they proved that this is going to be a really healthy game, as Rory said.
Yeah, it was a great game, and it was
brilliant.
Yeah, it was frantic. It was up and down the pitch. Both teams really went for it. I think it is, and I think Paddy Tally might have mentioned this earlier in the time as well. The Croke Park element with the rules is going to be very interesting as well as time goes on, and to see how things play out inside there. Look, it's always lent itself to the best football matches and the best style of football as well. So that'll be interesting as the summer goes on. But it was a great game.
Éamonn, it probably always is a great advantage to any team that ends up playing there quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, Rory. You could say that, and especially if you've blue jerseys on your back, and you've a heaving hill behind you, and everything else. But yeah, no, 100%. And look, to be fair to the Dubs, they've been fascinating really this spring. That if you were told the kind of defections continued as the league was going on. John Small was obviously confirmed this weekend now, and like the caliber of players that are going out the door, the caliber of leaders, it's incredible. And the word transition is thrown around so much with regard to teams. I'd always argue every team is in transition every year. You have to be, but I mean this is in unprecedented stuff for Dublin. The level of change that's going on and how well they're managing it. And you have players that have been there, the Larkin O'Dells, the Ross McGarrys, players like that have been around the place the last couple of years. Ross McGarry, I know, was only back, but that are getting a sustained look at it. Cian Murphy, I know, made big inroads last year, but that they've been around the squad. But then you've the likes of Luke Branagh, who's been I've been so impressed with him. I saw him the night in Tralee. He came on late in that game and he was good. He was excellent again the last night. And the likes of Sean Bugler, Brian Howard are really, really stepping up, and Scully as well is showing great form this year. So the Dubs were very impressive. Galway were good as well, except their finishing for Galway, who are such an accurate team in general, their finishing was shocking. I think Padre Joy said afterwards that they'd 19 missed opportunities between wides and drop short and everything else. But we got a glimpse of the potential of Damien Comer inside there with direct ball going into him, and
that's some goal he got, in fairness.
Unbelievable goal, and the couple of balls he won in the 1-on-1 situations as well. And Galway have good kickers. Paul Conroy was gone off early, but he's brilliant at putting ball inside, and he put a great ball in for Matthew Tierney's advanced mark in the first half, where he had the goal effort stopped on the line. But there was so much to talk about, and that's without even mentioning the grand old man himself, Stephen Cluxton, back in goals.
He did nightmare in the first half,
but Rory, typical him and typical Dublin. By the second half, he was picking them out, and he was picking out some of the best kickouts that we've seen so far in the league in terms of those mid-range ones that he was isolating players and he was picking them out and he was putting it on a plate. So Dublin traditionally are very good at fixing things at half-time. Cluxton fixed his kick out in 135 minutes. He was under pressure early on as he was getting his range, but he certainly got it. And I do think we're going to see more of those kind of mid-range kickouts as teams develop it, particularly in Croke Park because of the space in Croke Park. But he showed again his accuracy once he settled in and once he got used to the players' movement again.
I thought it was Jacqui, just Dublin. I mean, both games on Saturday. I mean, Éamonn was in Tralee. It looked stunning, actually. Mount Brandon in the background, and just the atmosphere, the vibe, everything about it just looked spectacular. And then it was a real old school game of football where we saw a lot of the traditions that we would ordinarily have associated with Kerry so much in the past start to resurface again, which I think is exciting for any neutral that might be watching. Not for Cork people, Éamonn, I would venture, but I think then later, I was just blown away by Dublin Galway, and it was everything that you were kind of expecting that the new rules could bring. And one of the things that this is very hard to say with any definitive sense because it's still very much in its infancy, Jacqui. But one of the things that I got a sense of is that the old rules of Gaelic football, the negative football was rewarded. The team that played with a negative mindset, a defensive mindset that sat back, was rewarded with All-Ireland titles. Let's be perfectly honest, right? I get a sense that the way the rules are constructed now, that the reward will be for the team that plays the more adventurous style. And I think that's what's really exciting me about the new iteration of these rules.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Éamonn, because I think, listen, anytime you're on a committee and you're trying to balance the good with the difficulties of trying to change something and overhaul it, I'd imagine that's a big part of the discussion. I think it's just trying to settle on something that you're happy with now, that you feel can go forward. Because even just listening to managers, like, I know they're probably still in a acceptance phase right now where they have to feel like this is going to be there for the rest of the year. We just have to get on with it. But there's still a bit of niggle there. You even hear like Jim McGuinness, giving out is probably too strong a word, but maybe just still like talking about rules. We're probably going to get to a point beyond the league where there's no more talking about it and they just get on with it and they accept that this is how we're going to play. Do you get that sense that maybe that's coming?
Yeah, 100%, Jacqui. And in fairness, for all of the managers and the players, I think in general, any of the feedback that I've got, the players are loving it, and I think that they are feeling liberated and that they're getting to, it was a point I would have made before the season even started that the players now are better conditioned and more skillful and more dedicated than they've ever been in history. But the constraints of the way the game was played, we didn't get to see it. We didn't get to see them express themselves the way they can. And I think they are now. I think it's starting to happen, and I think we'll see more of it as the season goes on. But look, I've been there. I've been that soldier. I totally get it from the management point of view, where what you want as a manager is you're looking at the players at your disposal. You're trying to figure out what's the best way for us to play to maximize what we have to make us as competitive as we can to try and win everything, basically, particularly the teams at the top end. So, the tweaks last week. For some teams, it meant that they had to adjust and that the work that they've been working on for the last couple of months was possibly no longer available for them. So I get the annoyance and I get the frustration and everything else. But, as you said, there comes a point which is now that it's just a case of get on with it and drive on for the rest of the year and see how you can make the rules work for you. And, like it kind of, it is what it is. And I understand from the manager's point of view as well. I imagine after every match, it's probably the easiest question to throw at them from a
Yeah.
reporter's point of view, from a journalist's point of view after the game. Well, what did you think of the rules today? So I think it's going to get it. We even saw a small bit of it with Kieran McGeeney after the match on Saturday evening, where they're going to say, "Look, lads, stop asking me about the rules. The
Yeah.
rules are there now, and it's about getting on with it." So, everyone's opinion, and it is such a topical subject. I get it, but at the same time, it is probably time for us all to start maybe looking at the analysis of the games and the trends and everything else that's going on rather than just the rules themselves. Because hopefully, while it's still in the remit of the FRC and all the groups above them to recommend further changes, I'd be very surprised if that was to happen, because unless something completely untoward happened, because it's a case of now let teams at it and let's see at the end of the season then.
Do you know one thing, Jacqui, though, that I thought was very interesting this weekend? And I noticed it maybe last weekend as well. And I actually went away and checked to see, was this rule still in situ? And sometimes I've seen this in the past when it comes to when new rules get introduced into whether it's Gaelic football or hurling, and then a couple of years later, more new rules get brought in or changes to the rules. And the original rules that might have been brought in a couple of years ago, referees, I don't know whether it's by accident or by design, but kind of say, do you know what? No, I'm not really going to start implying that because I have enough going on. I have enough going on with what I have. But one of the rules is, do you know the penalty for a goal scoring opportunity?
Yeah.
And I saw a couple of examples of it this weekend. There was one in the Monaghan Meath game, which I think it was Jordan Morris. And there was definitely one in the Donegal Tyrone game where Matty Donnelly was coming through and he was sort of pulled down. Now, the rule is it doesn't have to be inside the big parallelogram. It's just a goal scoring opportunity and it's a penalty. And I'm just wondering, are referees just deciding, you know what? I'm not going to bother with that rule. I'm just going to give it free here because I have too much to compute as it is. Eamon, did you notice it at all by any chance?
No, it's still there, Rory. We didn't
it is
touch
still
that.
there.
That rule is still there. But like you said, I think, and even the referees themselves would have said that from the first couple of rounds, that nearly some of the older rules, they were not forgetting about them, but they had so much going on in terms of getting used to the new rules, they were almost forgetting about them. But I think as the season goes on, all of that stuff will be tidied up and that they will be enforced. That would be my sense of it anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, look, we could spend another 20 minutes talking about the rules, but I'm sure, Eamon, you feel you've had enough of that one for now. So a couple of the other key things from a Kerry point of view, I would have said, Eamon, they're absolutely flying. It looks like, I thought Joe O'Connor looks like he's found a lovely new position at wing forward. Things like they're going great. And then suddenly you see an injury to Diarmuid O'Connor, and I wonder how much it derails the whole thing, because they looked like they had struck a balance of a perfect team. And now suddenly I wonder, is Jack O'Connor thinking, oh, Jesus, we weren't planning for this?
Oh yeah, they weren't planning for that, Jackie, and we're all of us down here hoping it isn't as serious as Diarmuid's reaction would have suggested,
Didn't look
because
great, did it? Yeah.
yeah, he looked distressed, and odd, like when it was very late in the game, it was 68, 69 minutes maybe, it was right at the end, so he was nearly there in terms of getting through the game, but it is a game changer for Kerry. There's no point saying otherwise, because it's a part of the field that Jack has been trying to develop the last couple of years. And, Diarmuid, the new rules were really suiting him in terms of kick outs to contests. And we were getting to see how strong he is in the air. And it's something we would have seen at underage level with him. So it is hugely disappointing. We'll have to wait and see now what the prognosis is. If it's even a 2-month injury, with the season being so condensed, you're into kind of group stages of the All Ireland series at that. So it could be costly, but look, Kerry will be very positive, I think, after the weekend, Jackie, realizing, as we said already, they're still not out of danger, but they played a game at the weekend when they could, that suits the players. Like, you have to try and play a game that gets the best out of your best players. The best player in Kerry, possibly the best player in the country, is David Clifford. How do you make David Clifford? How do you create the conditions for David Clifford to flourish? You get him the ball as quickly as you can, and as often as you can. And Kerry had clearly worked on it. We'd seen in other games, we'd seen flashes of it. We saw flashes of it against the Dubs in the first half when they were with the wind. But the last night, it was really, noticeable in the way that there was consecutive kicks through the lines. Dylan Gainey, Micheál Burns had a great game as well in terms of being an outlet and then looking to kick the ball inside as well. So it was hugely positive. I was a bit disappointed with them for maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the second half, and they kind of reverted to a more controlling game and trying to. It doesn't really suit Kerry to play that way. So they went back to it. Then again, at the end, they went back to the more direct kicking ball, and they got a couple of great scores at the end. So it was hugely positive. It was great to see it. All of the Kerry crowd that were there Saturday evening were very positive leaving the game, with that asterisk of the worry about Diarmuid, and we wish him the best, and hopefully it didn't look like it popped out or anything like that in the replays, but at the same time, he's had a shoulder injury before, and he seemed to be aware himself that it was quite sore, so hopefully it's not too bad.
Yeah, fingers crossed for him, because I think even when you lose key players like that, Rory, the knock-on impact that it has on the rest of the team and how they might have to move people around. Like I mentioned, Joe O'Connor potentially going back to a midfield position. You've got Armagh on the other side, Kieran McGeeney confirming that Rian O'Neill certainly isn't with the panel. We're not going to see him for a long time. It's these marquee players and their position on these teams, like the Kerrys, like the Armaghs. And when you don't have them at your disposal, your whole team looks very, very different.
Yeah, and you spot on, and I think he actually came up in the pre-match conversation with Colm Cooper and Lee, and they actually picked out Diarmuid O'Connor specifically as somebody that they feel, that there's a sort of a leadership mantle on him now. The fact that he's been on the panel a good number of years, they need him. Ball winning ability now around the middle of the field, which is a kind of a traditional type player that Kerry have always been very good at producing anyway, but had maybe not produced the same.
They're all going to Australia, Rory.
Well, I was just going to say they're all out. They have plenty of them, but they're all out in Australia. That's the issue. But so that'll give you an indication of how key Diarmuid was. But I think, look, overall, I was very impressed with Kerry. I think we know that when the ground hardens and the pace becomes even faster again, I think your skill set is going to become a real premium. I think the ability to kick the ball, we saw it again as well. By the way, there was just as many good exponents of that in the Dublin-Galway matches there was down in Tralee. But your ability to move the ball quickly from back to front and your ability to get it in there via a kick pass, running the ball now is really, I think over time that's going to become a redundant tactic. It might be something that you might use, in terms of maybe managing the clock, seeing a game out, those types of things. But if you have a sort of an attack-based mindset, and if you're kind of going after a game, I think the really progressive teams with the progressive coaches will look to try and transition much more quickly. And the fact now that you have that bit of space, I think kicking it is going to become way more prevalent in the game. And I think the best exponents of that historically have been Kerry. We'll see a reversion to that. Dublin well able to do it as well. Having that link player, as Éamonn mentioned in his Examiner column this morning, I think Dylan Ganey played it to perfection, and they'll always produce a player that can do that. I think Dublin have it. Galway will have it. I think Armagh might have had it if Rian O'Neill was still around, but that's a big blow as well too, and we shouldn't underestimate that. That's a huge blow for them. But I think there's a huge amount of positives from Kerry, from the way they stood up. There was a lot of messing. There was a lot of the pulling and dragging before the ball was even thrown in. And sometimes you kind of, as Éamonn mentioned, it might seem childish, I think was what the word you used in your column, which I think is a good analogy. But at the same time, look, there's a little bit of history developing between these two teams now. And who knows, if they meet later on in the championship, we could see it again. But like I'd say, Jack O'Connor went away from Tralee on Saturday night absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, I agree. I just wonder, where does he feel they'll end up? Because, Éamonn, when you look at it, 5 teams can potentially still make a league final. We've heard lots of managers talking about whether they want to be there, whether they don't want to be there. Where's your gut feeling on who's going to be in those top 2, and maybe who might actually want to play in league final?
Yeah, Dublin and way to Tyrone will tell a lot, Jacqui.
Yeah.
Like Dublin obviously going well. Tyrone need to win that game to keep themselves up. So there's a lot going in that. Galway, Kerry, there's a lot going in it similarly. I remember one of the years, 2017, it was the year we won the league. Actually, we went into our last game at home against Tyrone, and it was a similar kind of a situation in Kerry, where pessimism is never in short supply. It was being pitted as a relegation battle, and we had a great win. And the next thing, we were in the league final. So it's it's kind of a similar situation. So I'd fancy the Dubs to get there. I hope Galway aren't there, because that'll mean that they're after beating Kerry, and Kerry could be in danger as well then. So it's hard to call that second team. It really is, because there's a couple of the games where there mightn't be as much riding on it, but all those games, featuring the teams in the relegation zone in particular, brings that edge to it.
Yeah, well, looking forward to it. We'll be back on Thursday to have a look ahead to those final round of fixtures in Division 1. Just to pull out the strands of a couple of the other big stories over the weekend, you look at what has happened with Leitrim not being able to field a team in a league fixture, Éamonn. And I wonder how dire the situation must be when a phone call like that needs to be put into the county board to say, we don't have enough players. Word was that they had 16 players who were able to play, but not including, they didn't have a goalkeeper included in that. The previous week they'd played against Offaly and only had 22 players available to tog. You want managers to get to a point where this is what happens.
Yeah, it's again, it's unprecedented, Jacqui, because it's kind of one of the almost foundation stones of the GAA, regardless of what level you're playing at, all the way down to Junior B, that if there's a fixture to be fulfilled, you'll gather some few fellas to make sure that the game is played. And even if you're short, it's we've all been there, done that. I remember as a young fella playing in games, and we'd only have 14 for the first half, and the secretary of the club might stand in for the second half with a pair of Wellingtons on after being called in from a fishing trip or something like that. So, it was disappointing to see it, to be honest about it. I've seen things said that surely they could have pulled a few players in from some of the senior clubs in Leitrim. It is a completely different level. You could have done that to have fulfilled the fixture, but you just wonder about the lateness of the call. You'd wonder, was there agitation going on in the background to see, could they get a refixture, or could it be postponed? The tightness of the calendar probably came into play with regard to that. So I suppose we don't have all the information. We have the kind of the official statement and everything, but it's hard to believe. And I suppose the thing about it is, I understand why they're going obviously for that under 20 Connacht competition, but by rule they could have played, the under 20 players could have played, or they could have, I think there's 6 of them involved in the under 20s, they could have maybe three played and three not. Or they could have done something around that if they really wanted to play it, but unusual circumstances and disappointing to see for sure.
Yeah, it's just not a good look, Rory. It's a senior intercounty game not being fulfilled. This is not, what Éamonn describes about a local club fixture and you're hearing stories about a bus driver jumping in or whatever happens. This is senior intercounty. It's the top level. It's just really not a good look for Leitrim or for the GAA.
It's dreadful. It's a dreadful, really appalling look, actually. It's appalling. It's damaging for the Leitrim County Board. I think it's damaging for the GAA. I don't understand why they could not have. Now, my understanding, having asked the question, is they didn't look for a refixture. They just accepted their fate. So now that might have been on the basis that they probably felt they weren't going to be given a refixture anyway.
Well, that, and as Éamonn says, maybe the calendar is complicated too.
Yeah, but all I know is at club level, if you give a walkover, there are repercussions, right? There are major repercussions, and the Dublin County Board actually have doubled. You had a situation last year where there was a very, very famous club in Dublin gave a walkover in Division 1, right? And since then, they've doubled the fine. Now, in my view, fining amateur organisations, you're only fining volunteers. I know that that is fraught with moral issues and whether or not it's the right message to be sending out and how much people will actually adhere to a punishment like that. But they should be punished in some way. Like if you, I can understand and I can accept all the mitigation around lack of player availability, condensed calendar, they're putting a big store in their under-20s who have a big game the following Wednesday night. All of those types of things are all mitigation. But you need to be punished for this. There has to be, because this is a farcical situation. It's damaged the competition. It's damaging for the GAA and it's damaging for Leitrim County Board.
That's the difficulty though, Éamonn. Like as you say, you've been a manager, you understand the pressures that are there when you're trying to scramble together something. It's just what is the punishment that fits the crime? Rory can say they should be punished, and I completely understand, because that will be the feeling of a lot of people.
But you have to, sorry, Jacqui, because if you don't punish them, what's stopping Carlow next week? What's stopping Longford or other counties to all of a sudden say, well, you know what? We don't really need to fulfill that. We've no chance of winning the league. It'll save us a few quid on travel. It'll save us this. It'll save us that. So do you know what? Let's just concede the game, because, this is where it becomes a very, very... What Leitrim have done here is created a precedent. So they've kind of put it up to the GAA in an administrative sense. Sorry, Éamonn.
Yeah, no, that's right. And sorry, one thing I will add to that, Éamonn, is what I was going to say is they are not dealing with the same set of players or financial things at their disposal or, anything that other counties may. And that potentially should form part of, if there is a punishment, maybe an understanding of what they might actually be dealing with in Leitrim as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think there is that appreciation is there, but it is, like I said, that, there is that unwritten rule and that kind of pride in always fulfilling the fixtures regardless of what's going on within a camp. Like in terms of financial penalties and everything, I think especially for managements and players, the only thing that really hurts is points on the board. So, we've seen that in a soccer scenario in the professional game in the past, where teams are docked points for, financial issues or financial fair play or any of that kind of stuff. So that's the thing that hurts. And I'm not sure if there's ever been examples of that in the GAA. But yeah, it's a mad situation, and it's something that came at everyone out of the blue. It isn't something you'd be expecting to be reading about, and unfortunate for Fermanagh as well. They were looking forward to a game, I'm sure, this weekend, and I don't think it's going to really affect them. But if something was coming down to scoring difference and the fact they didn't have a game and against an opposition that the way Fermanagh are going, they'd be fancying winning and everything else. There's a lot of knock-on effects from it, but hopefully, look, it's a very rare occurrence. Hopefully, it's not something we'll be seeing in the near future again.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's finish off on two good news stories. One in that division with Clare potentially going the right direction in Munster football, and the other Monaghan. I think lots of people, Eamon, maybe were sort of, we were chatting about this off air. Maybe a lot of people were sort of banging their drum once they started getting relegated down to Division Two. A lot of people thought, oh, that's the end of it. Conor McManus is stepping away. They're going backwards, but actually they have booked a complete trend and are going to be playing Division 1 football, absolutely flying, and looks like they're playing a lovely brand of football as well. And when you do have good news stories like these ones, they should be celebrated.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, they're brilliant. They're a brilliant county, and there's so much you could talk about them from this league,
There is.
Jacqui. To be honest, I think Gabriel Bannigan in charge of them. I've been very impressed with him. He's been in the background in the past with different setups he's been involved in, and we'd never have seen him really front and center. But any of the kind of bits and pieces I've seen with him, he seems very solid, very steady, very calm, giving a very consistent message. Some of their players are playing absolutely brilliantly. I've mentioned him plenty of times in the past, but Steve O'Hanlon is just absolutely brilliant to watch, and he was outstanding again yesterday. I think he got 4 points maybe, but outside of that, when he gets possession, that ability, that step that he has, that way that he can beat a player, drop the shoulder and go past. He had that basketball background as a young fella, the way he plays heads up, he can play the right pass at the right time. He had an injury last year, and I think the new game is suiting him because in the past when he beat a player, there was two other fellas there that he had to deal with, whereas now when he gets past the player, it's opening up for him, either for himself or for his teammates. So they're so exciting. The other players, the likes of Jack McCarron, what he did when he came on yesterday, Gary Mohan, Darren Hughes, you mentioned him, Rory, coming back at whatever age he
38.
is.
I mean, it's
Unreal.
just extraordinary now. Yeah, sorry, Eamon.
And he still looks 28.
He
and
does, yeah.
he's
Yeah.
back. So they've been hugely impressive, and it's great to see. And then interestingly yesterday as well, there was kind of the death knell for goalkeepers was sounded, which I don't think was the intention anyway, but Rory Beggan showed that you can still go up as the goalkeeper if you want, if you're good enough, and that you can
Niall
help
Morgan
attack.
too, yeah.
Niall Morgan ended it an excellent piece on Niall Morgan last night on the League Sunday show, and you saw the only thing that wasn't there was a save, but everything else in terms of kickouts, frees, fielding ball, going out for kickouts, and then kicking a couple of scores himself was there. So still possible for the goalkeepers to get involved at the other side of the field, maybe a bit more risky, and it's probably reducing it to the fellas that can really make a difference. But Rory Beggan was doing it to effect as well for Monaghan, setting up a couple of scores. So yeah, hugely impressed with Monaghan. And while they're not absolutely up yet, and Down will be scrapping for points against them
Yeah.
next weekend. And an Ulster derby as well means that all form goes out the window. There's a lot of riding in that game in terms of Sam Maguire's status and everything else. So that'll be a huge game for them next weekend. But hugely impressed with Monaghan so far
Yeah,
this week.
me too, Jacqui. Like, to me, I mean, it was great that we got an opportunity to see them
Yeah.
properly yesterday in a proper contest. They had 120 on the board at halftime. By halftime, 120. Now I know there was a win. There always is in Navan, Park Talchin, but that is
outrageous.
it's just some scoring. Jack McCarron comes on, kicks two incredible 2-pointers again with the aid of a breeze. But I think they were both outside not a mind outside the arc. They were outside the 45.
Yeah.
Like, this was just absolutely for them to see a change in management, and Vinnie Corey did an incredible job, right, to kind of keep the ship afloat when Malachy stepped down. To lose the likes of the talismanic figure like Conor McManus, to see the likes of the Wiley brothers go, the Kieran Hughes, you're kind of saying to yourself, as a county with a small pick, they'll struggle. They'll struggle now for a while. And yet here they are, 12 months later, played 6-1-5. Like, I think they'll beat Down because they're just a better side than Down. They'll be in that Division 2 league final, and I think they'll probably win it. They are an extraordinary bunch, an extraordinary county that just, like, it would have been so easy to write their epitaph once they were relegated out of Division 1, and lo and behold, here they are within 12 months. Incredible resilience, playing a really good brand of football as well. they have the full package between the keeper all the way through. Bannigan, superb centre forward, again, a really good link player. Yeah, hats off to them. That's all you could say.
Yeah, good news story, that is for sure. And we will leave you on that one. Don't forget, we'll be back on Thursday to look ahead to the final round of matches. But for the moment, Éamonn, thanks a million for being with us. Have a great week. And don't forget to like and follow wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll talk to you soon.
Oh, there's the whistle, it's over.